Welcome back to our regularly scheduled town council meeting at 6 p.m. on October 12th. I'll call the meeting to order. And again, if we could please take a moment of silence to acknowledge all of those that do and have served, enabling each and every one of us our safety, freedom, and privilege to vote. Thank you all. In accordance with Mass General Law, tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. I would ask if anyone in the audience is recording, if you could please identify yourself.
I don't see anyone.
Thank you, Don. Tonight's meeting is being held virtually through a Zoom webinar pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Our first order of business this evening comes under communications, correspondence, and announcements. Jeannie, do you have the paperwork?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If you could read that when you have the opportunity, I'd appreciate it.
Letters dated October 4th, 2021, addressed to members of the town council from Mary E. McNally. I submit this document with sadness and regret. The reasons for my decision can be summed up in one sentence: the complete lack of a modicum of professional courtesy, the insidious negativity and suspicion, the continuous pattern of overreaching by a particular counselor into matters which the charter clearly identifies as a responsibility of the manager, and disingenuous communication and misrepresentation of facts to other counselors have created a work environment which I find intolerable. As a direct result of this unceasingly negative, divisive conduct and intentional interference with my responsibilities, I herewith tender my resignation as the town manager of East Long Meadow, effective December 3, 2021. Lest any of you think this resignation is a knee-jerk reaction, be advised that there has been a nonstop series of incidents since August of 2019, which I have tried to work through amicably and with patience, but without success. As you know, the town is on the cusp of tremendous progress and growth and has a number of exciting projects and initiatives underway, but it also faces some major challenges that deserve the unfettered attention of the manager. The town has a wonderful group of department heads whom I have been privileged to lead through extraordinary difficult times. I respect and admire them for their collective dedication and contributions to the town. Together, we have achieved many significant goals. They have earned my respect and support and have achieved many significant goals. They have earned my respect and support, and they deserve to work for a manager who is not constantly undermined by a member of the council. To be sure, the majority of the council has been very supportive of me in word and action, especially Michael Kane and Kathleen Hill throughout the respective council presidencies. I sincerely appreciate their collective efforts to cooperate in addressing the town's needs in a positive way. Unfortunately, their support and that of the rest of the council is not sufficient to offset the cumulative effect of the toxic environment created by this particular councilor's pattern of negativity and suspicion. Disagreement on substantive issues is, of course, part of legitimate community discussion. Mature professional conduct would suggest these matters be discussed by and between the parties to identify areas of dispute and offer perspective. However, disingenuous public comments delivered from the council floor during a meeting without any notice to me, which arguably should have been provided under Article 2, Section 2.9 of the Charter, which contain innuendo and suggest a conscious disregard on my part for my responsibilities on matters approved 5 months ago, are the last straw for me, especially when they imply a deliberate failure to honor some non-existent obligation or agreement. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve your community. Respectfully submitted, Mary E. McNally.
Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
Our next order of business this evening is council comments. Again, I'm not seeing the entire screen. Fortunately, I can see Connor's hand. Connor?
Thanks, Mike. I just wanted to quickly say that I appreciate all of Mary's hard work for the town over the past couple of years, and greatly appreciative of what she's done to move our town forward in a positive direction. So thank you for your service.
Thank you, Connor. Are there any other? Kathy?
Thank you. I've thought a lot about this. Mary tendered this resignation a week ago, and it's given me a fair amount of opportunity to reflect on her words and the substance of her grievance. And I'm immensely saddened and very frustrated that we've come to this, that the behavior of an adult can be so divisive and disruptive to what ought to be, in a small New England town such as ours, collegial, collaborative, and respectful. In our previous meeting, we heard from two new names to the game, if you will, and both candidates offered their background and experience and their genuine interest in helping this town through being a part of the council. And to me, the nature of what an individual like that can bring to the table is the essence of public government for us. My frustration comes from the fact that there is no council rule to address bad behavior. I tried unsuccessfully in February of this year to introduce a code of conduct that would address protocols for communication between counselors and paid employees, between counselors and department heads, and as well as in an effort to address actions that the council could take should the behaviors become unreasonable on the council. That was successfully denied. Nothing in the charter except section 8-7 speaks to the opportunity or the power, if you will, of a council to discipline its own. The section 8-7 speaks about a citizen's referendum for recall. And perhaps that needs to be left on the table for any registered voter to ponder after this evening's meeting. If you have been a viewer of our council meetings since the late 2019, some of the issues that our manager notes are clearly visible on tape. I'm told, and I've been aware secondhand, that the behaviors that being alluded to have in fact occurred on camera and off. The behaviors have disrupted and challenged the manager's authority, disrupted the morale of our employees, and in some ways have compromised the integrity of a number of department heads. I think we all know, and we're not strangers to the fact that in government, whether it's at the national level, regional, state, or local, when something or an individual becomes a distraction or a disruption, and by the way, we woke up this morning to hear that a well-regarded coach of an NFL team, having said some egregious things in emails, removed himself before he was removed by the owners of the league. I guess my point is that when we reach a point of distraction and disruption, some action has to be taken, and it bothers me greatly to say this, but I implore my counselor colleague to do the right thing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Marilyn?
Thank you, Michael. First of all, Mary, I extend to you my sincere regret, my profound sorrow that we couldn't fix this. As a counselor, I feel that as all of us as counselors, we were aware of the behavior. We've seen it. We've witnessed it, and we have not spoken up and have done anything about it. I want to support what Kathy said about we don't have a council rule. You know, I sort of helped Kathy review the draft document that she put before the council. And when it was basically discussed minimally and then tabled, I asked that it be put on the agenda for the following month. And the code of conduct was met with pushback. I understand there might have been some parts that we needed to address, but we didn't even take the time to look at it. So it didn't go anywhere. Since then, twice I have asked at the end of our meetings during action items that this code of conduct be added to the next agenda, and it wasn't. I don't know why. I don't know why the people are so resistant. I don't want to take away anyone's liberties. I don't want to set anyone up to be discriminated against if a rule might be misinterpreted, but we haven't even tried. Councilor Kathy and I attended a webinar seminar sponsored by the Mass Municipal Association, the title of which was Code of Conduct for Elected Officials. And we both, you know, in our own homes, watched this video, and we did send word to the rest of the council to take part. I'm not sure if anyone did. That video has been available, or it had been available on the MMA website. But the process or the information from that webinar many times spoke to the town of East Long Meadow, and it spoke to some of the things that we are dealing with. I still think we owe it to our future town manager. I think we owe it to future counselors that we come up with some sort of a code of conduct. I've been the recipient of this behavior that we're all sort of skirting around addressing. Before I was elected to the council, I was a resident sitting in a council meeting, and I observed terrible, terrible treatment of our town accountant who had presented to the Financial Oversight Committee or to the council, but it was at the direction of the Financial Oversight Committee, some information. And apparently she didn't prepare, didn't bring everything that was expected of her. Now, I'm not making any excuses that perhaps she didn't do her job properly, and perhaps she needed to revisit the request that was made of her prior to the meeting. What I'm objecting to is the fact that she was called out, publicly embarrassed on the council floor. And I'm sitting in the audience and I'm listening to this. And the fact that she was 9 months pregnant sort of made us all a little sensitive to the fact that, gosh, you know, do you really have to be that mean-spirited? Because that's what it was. When she was dismissed from the council floor and told, don't come back until you have the information necessary for this discussion, I saw the tears in her eyes as she packed up her computer and she left the room via the back entrance. And I had two takeaways from that particular experience. As a resident, I wasn't a counselor at the time. One was, first of all, how can he talk that way? This is conduct unbecoming a counselor. Conduct unbecoming a counselor. But the bigger, more important takeaway was that his colleagues sitting at the table didn't stop it. They didn't say, knock it off. They didn't say, this is inappropriate. Your tone, your mannerisms, your shaking of your finger, it's wrong. And that's where we have fallen short as a council. And this is the piece that I struggle with the most. We each have had an opportunity to raise our voices and say, stop. And it hasn't happened. So I understand why Mary got tired. I understand why she threw her hands up in the air and said, enough, enough. You know, abusive relationships take all forms. And sadly, this is, in my opinion, a form of abuse and harassment. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it got this far. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Any other council comments? I don't see any other hands, and I hope I'm not missing anyone. I would just like to add that it's been years that I've been working alongside of Mary, not only as our president, but it started back when we had a vacancy, and I worked hard amongst other council members. Kathy, you were there as well, trying to get Mary to come over here because we felt she was the right person for the job and she'd do the right thing. I also felt that we owed her a sense of protection so that she wouldn't have to work in a workplace environment that would be viewed as hostile or would tolerate harassment. Everybody knows what happened up to this point, and I'm in shock just trying to figure out what we're going to do going forward. This whole episode is totally unnecessary, and it's cost me 40 hours of work last week just with conversations with residents and other council members and all kinds of people. So it's a complete disappointment, and I can only say I wish her the best moving forward. So that's it. Thank you. If there are no other comments at this point, then we'll continue on with the agenda and we'll move into public comments. Jeannie, do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
We do. Justin McCarthy should be, I see him in the audience.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
I can. Hi, Justin. Welcome.
How are you?
Good. Could you state your name and address just for the record, please?
Sure. My name is Justin McCarthy, and I live at 84 Porter Road in East Longmeadow.
Thank you. Before we get started here, I just want to read Rule F from our council comments. That each regular meeting of the council, we do set aside a period for public comments, and any member of the public desiring to address the council shall be recognized and shall state his or her name and address for the record as you have. Time allowed for public comments will be limited to 3 minutes for each individual speaking unless waived by the presiding officer. So you can continue with any information you have. And I just, obviously everyone here knows, the general public doesn't know that's viewing in, that you did submit documentation prior to the meeting. We have that in receipt and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I'd like to speak about the mask mandate that we have here in town. So first, regarding the mandate itself, I sent to you the notice of the public meeting that was published before the meeting where the Board of Health implemented and voted on the mask mandate. And if you look at that notice, there's no mention on there that the board will be discussing the mask mandate, even though it's very likely that they knew they were going to speak about it at the meeting. And I think it's pretty obvious that it's a controversial issue and it affects everybody here in town. So I believe their failure to adequately give notice of the vote is potentially an open meeting law violation. Also, if you look at the statute that they're using for their authority for the mask mandate, it's Mass General Law, Chapter 111, Section 31. So if you read that, it's pretty obvious that that statute is talking about the sanitary codes and the enforcement of the sanitary codes, and it has nothing to do with contagious diseases and masks, but that's beside the point. If you read it, and you read it to the last sentence of the statute, it says that any regulation implemented under that statute has to be reported to the Department of Environmental Protection for their registry. You have to send a copy of the order to the DEP. So I checked with the DEP, and the Board of Health, they have no record of the Board of Health implementing this regulation, and they have no copy of it. So I believe that the order itself is defective, legally speaking. Now, I've spoken to at least 100 residents about this mask mandate, and I've spoken to a lot of business owners, and the greatest amount of resentment towards this mandate comes from the business owners, because business owners are losing income, they're losing clients. They're fed up enforcing this on their employees, on their staff, on their patrons, and they resent the fact that at any given time, no matter how well they do enforcing this, somebody can call the health inspector and they can get hit with $1,000 fine, which is the maximum amount allowed under the statute. Now, I filed a petition asking you guys to redress this, and you clearly have the authority to do it under Article 2, Section 5 of the Charter, which gives you legislative powers. And legislative power means that you can make laws, you can amend laws, you can repeal laws. And in addition to legislative power, you have general power. So essentially, you can do anything on behalf of the people of East Long Meadow, so long as it doesn't violate the laws or conflict with the charter or the bylaws. So just to sum up, we have a defunct Board of Health. We have a defective order here. We have businesses in town hurting due to this order. And we have you have the power to fix this. Now I've filed the petition. Hopefully we'll hear that petition soon, hopefully next month, I hope. And I hope you guys will vote to put an end to this mandate, or at the very least, make it less restrictive and give the poor small businesses who have been hit harder than anybody by all these COVID lockdowns and regulations and whatnot, give these poor businesses a break. They deserve it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time as well.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mary, if you're ready, do you have a manager's report for us this evening?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Michael. The report tonight focuses on the reconstruction of our health department. As I reported to you in September, we lost effectively the entire staff, from the director to the inspector to the public nurse. However, we have hired a new health director. She's currently the health director in Southwick. She'll be available in early November to assume her duties here. Her name is Tammy Spencer. She interviewed very well, Kim's highly recommended, has an over 20-year career in the public health field, and is currently the co-chair, as I said in my report, of the Hamden County Health Coalition. So she has a lot of interface with public health officials from other communities that I think will assist her in her transition from Southwick, which is a slightly smaller community than East Long Meadow, but she's full of enthusiasm. And I think she'll bring her a very good skill set with her when she arrives in early November. In the meanwhile, I have promoted Alex Roncarati from her position as administrative assistant to health inspector. Alex has the certifications necessary to do that job, but she lacks field experience. And so with that in mind, and with the fact that we have no director on site to provide training and mentoring in these early weeks of Alex's new role, I have contracted with an entity to do some food service inspections. It's a private Western Mass food safety company. It's a private inspection service that's actually run by Meredith O'Leary, who happens to be the public health director in Northampton. And Donna Bowman is on her staff, and Donna will be doing the food inspections in East Long Meadow
over the next month or so that we have some degree with the business community of continuity. Donna, as you all are well aware, has a wonderful temperament and good relationship with the businesses in East Long Meadow. So the fact that she's available to take Alex out on some field inspections and serve sort of as a bit of a coach, I think will serve both of them well and see that we get our inspections done in a timely manner. In the meanwhile, I've also, by promotion of Alex, that means our administrative assistant position would be vacant. So she's agreed to continue to serve in that capacity too on an interim basis. So we're kind of playing Humpty Dumpty with the health department, but we're putting it all together again, and hopefully it won't be too long before we're streamlined and efficient as before. We will soon be advertising also for a part-time, very part-time public health nurse, but I wanted to leave that recruitment to Tammy Spencer. She's far more qualified than I to determine the necessary skills for that role, but it's primarily contact tracing for the continuing cases, COVID cases in the community. With respect to the Board of Health, I have received several applications to fill the vacant seats. I did forward the application of Dr. Catherine Jobbins to you in late September. And so I'll formally offer her for one of those vacancies in tonight's meeting to hopefully start the calendar running on the time that the council has to veto that nomination. Dr. Jobbins is on staff at Bay State. She's an internist, very committed to, as I say in my report, advocacy for a safe and healthy community. So assuming that you find her acceptable and can approve her appointment, then the Board of Health will have sufficient members for a quorum. And as soon as they do, they will reconvene at a meeting at their earliest convenience to take up the discussion, I'm sure, of the mask mandate, the continuing of it. It has been extended by the State Department of Education through November 1st for school children. But that date, November 1st, obviously is fast approaching too. So, and I have two other applicants who I have interviews with next Monday for the remaining third seat on the Board of Health. In other health news, Alex, who's basically our health department at the moment, did work with Big Y last Wednesday and Thursday, or Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm sorry, with a flu vaccination clinic that took place at the fire department. She indicated that there were over 500 people who received their vaccination over that 2-day period. So the town continues in the yellow zone, which means that we're in the higher than moderate positivity rate, but the cases and the positive case numbers are coming down. So we're hopeful that this most recent wave of the COVID is behind us, but we just await the next wave, I suppose, and hopefully it won't ever come. Retirement news, in addition to my own, I suppose. Peter Benjamin, our assistant treasurer, has offered his resignation. He will retire on October 22nd. Peter will be sorely missed, as I say in my report, for a number of reasons, among them his absolutely conscientious dedication to his roles and his responsibilities. He has an uncanny willingness to help others at any and all times. And he brings with him a cheerful demeanor every day when he comes into the office. So interactions with him are always pleasant and productive. And I, on behalf of all the town department heads and staff, wish Peter great happiness and good health throughout his retirement. We continue to meet regarding the situation with the Eastern Hamden Veterans District. We met Thursday afternoon. There is still no written confirmation from the Secretary's office in Boston that this district will be allowed to function in fiscal '22, despite its lack of compliance with the regulations regarding staffing. And the lack of that written affirmation concerns me greatly because as a result of that, our veteran service officer is denied access to certain software that she really has to have access to in order to process benefits for veterans. So we also had problems getting the balance of veterans funds transferred from the Munson Treasurer's Office to the Wales Treasurer's Office, which is going to serve as the administrative arm of the district going forward. So everything is still in a state of flux. I am frustrated by the lack of progress. I know there's a meeting Thursday afternoon with the board member who represents Wales. He's a selectman in Wales, is meeting in Boston with the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and hopefully he'll come back with that written confirmation. I'm reserving the right on behalf of East Long Meadow to withdraw from the district. Our veterans are very well served by Michelle in her current capacity, but there are too many gaps in service, and they need to be addressed, and they should have been addressed long ago. So I'm determined to rectify that situation. On an ARPA update, I did attach to my report this month a 2-page summary authored by Bruce Fenney, which talks about the latest contract bidding that he would like to see for a project known as the Permanent Wastewater Flow Monitoring. This project would be funded through ARPA. The only bid came in the amount of $860,000. That price is considerably higher than the amount shown on our capital plan for this project, which was in the $533,000 range. So I've offered Bruce's explanation for the background of that for your review. And if there are any questions or you want further explanation, I would hope that those questions would come in writing pursuant to the charter section 2.9 to give Mr. Fenney an opportunity to investigate the answers to any questions you may have. I would point out to you that the bid of $860,000 was the sole bid received in a second round of bidding. The first time those bids went out, there was no bid submitted by any vendor. And the 2 projects that we've already approved for ARPA spending, the Cooley and Avery water main replacement and the Ridge Road and East Circle water main replacement, have come in under $295,918 less than what we had anticipated. So even though this particular project comes in at 300 more, we have saved 295 on the other projects, just for your information. So happy to answer more of those questions as time goes by. And there's no contract signed yet. So I don't want the council to think that we're moving forward without you having an opportunity to look into the background and determine if you think this is a good use for that ARPA money, or we should perhaps look in a different area. I don't know. The Westcom board met on October 1st. That district continues to move forward with a request for qualifications for the project manager for the renovation of the Schwinnigan Road site in Chicopee. That's a work in progress. It's going to take several months. Negotiations continue with our police union. I am waiting for our legal counsel to opine back to me on a draft settlement proposal that I've recently offered to his firm for review prior to submitting it to the union representatives. And we're also waiting for responses from the town's former town employees union professional unit. I think we've resolved that contract. We're just waiting for them to get back to us. And I also wanted to report that on October 21st, there will be 2 open house sessions at the Council on Aging to work on the implementation of the master plan. Bethany and Karen Korpinen have worked very hard to set up an agenda and try to get the community aware of these sessions, to engage those people with energy who have read the master plan and want to take part in its implementation. So we're hopeful that by having 2 sessions, one in the afternoon and one in the early evening, that will give people an opportunity based on their schedules to attend and learn more. And also our planning department, through Bethany Yao's efforts, has obtained district local technical assistance funding from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to allow for development of a housing plan for East Long Meadow, housing production plan, which, as you know, is key to resolving any issues on the amount and development of affordable housing in town. So that grant will allow employees from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to assist us in developing a strategy to deal with that issue. I did appoint Peter Sharrock to the Recreation Commission. Peter is involved in the medical technology sales field, and he has 3 daughters, all of whom are in different grade levels of East Long Meadow. One's in elementary, one's in the middle school, and one's in high school. So, and he coaches currently, I think he said softball, but I can't recall right at the moment. I've also reappointed all the members of the Broadband Committee for an additional 1-year term. The committee will meet tomorrow afternoon, and the major topic for their consideration is an opportunity that East Long Meadow has to extend fiber to every home within the town's boundaries. And I say in my report that I'm going to defer to Ryan and to Don Mackey on the technical explanation of this, but the great benefit of this, according to them, and my limited understanding of it, is that this will allow a number of different service providers to provide service, internet and otherwise, to residents in East Long Meadow, so that we'll no longer be limited strictly to Spectrum. So that could open a very large opportunity for the people who live here and the service providers who would want to take an opportunity to garner that business. We had a department heads meeting last Wednesday afternoon. We talked about a lot of things, mainly the budget. And we do have a budget calendar that I've distributed to them that accelerates the budget submissions a tad. And that's to be discussed a little bit further, but we don't want to get caught in the squeeze that we had last year where we were trying to do too much in a short window. So that's the report for tonight. Thank you.
Mary, as always, thank you for the report. Any questions relevant to Mary's report this evening, Ralph?
Mike, I just have one for Mary, and I don't even know if she'll be able to answer it. It's in regards to the ARPA.
Yep.
If we use the grant to pay for this, then do we free up from capital what we had allocated for it?
Yes, we do. That $533,000 for this project was going to be bonded out of the Water Enterprise Fund. It was approved, I think, in the fiscal 21 capital.
It was. I remember that. I just wasn't sure if we were going to need it for another metering pit or if this is the only one. And ARPA sounds like a good way to go to me.
Well, it saves us some money, that's for sure.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Motion to approve the September 14th, 2021 open session minutes.
I move to approve the September 14th, 2021 open session minutes.
No, you're muted.
How about this? Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Tom?
After my review of the minutes and review of the LCAT video, starting around 19 minutes into our meeting on September 12th, I find them substantially and informatively informatively incomplete. In this review, there are over 12 minutes of discussions on the specific topic that we were speaking to, where numerous important and relevant statements from Councilors Hill, Henry, Richards, O'Connor, Council President Kane, and Town Manager McNally are missing from the minutes.
Point of information, please. Tom, what was the subject about, if you can help with that?
The subject was regarding the deputy town manager position.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
So,
Here,
Mike, I haven't had the opportunity to go back to the tape or anything and look at it. I would ask that we table these minutes then until the next meeting. And if there is an addition that's got to be made, we can do it at that time.
I think that we would all enjoy having the opportunity to revisit as well. So if we can resend the second and the motion, Ralph, if you're making a motion to table, Connor, how do you feel about that, or Kathy?
I will rescind my second, assuming Connor will do the same, and then you can go forward with the tabling motion.
Thank you.
Sure.
Connor? I believe he said yes.
Yes.
So Ralph, could
So
you
I'll
state
make a
that motion?
motion to table the September 14th, 2021 open session minutes until our next meeting.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Further discussion? Okay.
Just,
I am a yes. Kathy?
oh,
Yes.
I had one question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Connor?
I would just add that if we're tabling it to our next meeting, that if there are points that are identified as missing, that those be suggested and represented ahead of the meeting to us instead of trying to decide them on the floor.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion,
Mike,
Tom?
if I may, I can make it easy to ask the clerk to review the meeting minutes starting at minute 19. And the next 12 minutes are what is missing. And that would make it a lot easier for them to revisit the video and address the missing comments that I suggested or that I mentioned were made by Councilors Hill, Henry, Richards, O'Connor, and Kane, and Town Manager McNally.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we do have a motion to table and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll continue with our roll call vote. I'm a yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Marilyn?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay, motion to approve the September 14th executive session minutes.
I motion to approve the September 14, 2021 executive session minutes.
I second the motion.
Okay, again, a motion and a second discussion. I'm seeing no discussion regarding the executive session minutes. On the roll call vote, I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Okay, we do have a public hearing scheduled for this evening. It was scheduled for 6:15. This public hearing is requires a first reading for the proposed stretch energy code bylaw. Marilyn, I believe you have that bylaw, and if so, could you read it, please?
Thank you, Mike. I certainly will. To see if the town council will vote to enact chapter 5.05D of the Town of East Long Meadow General Bylaws, Stretch Energy Code, for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy, pursuant to Appendix 115.AA of the Massachusetts Building Code, 780 CMR, the Stretch Energy Code, including future additions, amendments, or modifications thereto, with an effective date of January 1, 2022, a copy of which is on file with the town clerk, or take any other action relative thereto. Before I go on, Michael, do I read the entire document? Okay,
Yes, I would appreciate
Lucky
that.
you.
All right.
Sorry, but I appreciate it.
Just get another coffee. Okay, chapter, proposed general bylaw as follows. Chapter 5.05D, Stretch Energy Code, date inserted once adopted. Section 5.05D-1, definitions. Section 5.05D-2, purpose. Section 5.05D-3, applicability. Section 5.05D-4, stretch code. Section 5.05D-5, enforcement. In section 5.05D-1, definitions, Internal Energy Conservation Code, parentheses IECC. The Internal Energy Conservation Code, IECC, is a building energy code created by the International Code Council. It is a model code adopted by many state and municipal governments in the United States for the establishment of minimum design and construction requirements for energy efficiency, and is updated on a 3-year cycle. The baseline energy conservation requirements of the Massachusetts State Building Code are the IECC with Massachusetts amendments as approved by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards. Stretch Energy Code, codified by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards as 780 CMR Appendix 115.AA of the Massachusetts Building Code. The Stretch Energy Code is an appendix to the Massachusetts Building Code based on further amendments to the International Energy Conservation Code, IECC, to improve the energy efficiency of buildings built to this code. Section 5.05D-2, purpose. The purpose of 780 CMR 115.AA is to provide a more energy efficient alternative to the base energy code applicable to the relevant sections of the building code for new buildings. Section 5.05D-3, applicability. This code applies to residential and commercial buildings as applicable per 780 CMR. Section 5.05D-4, stretch code. The stretch code, as codified by the Board of Building Regulations and Standards as 780 CMR Appendix 115.AA, including any future additions, amendments, or modifications, is herein incorporated by reference into the Town of East Long Meadow General Bylaws, Chapter 5.05D. Section 5.05D-5, enforcement. The stretch code is enforceable by the building commissioner and effective as of January 1, 2022.
Thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
So I'm just going to introduce the council members here across my screen. I'm Mike Kane. Below me is Marilyn Richards. We have Kathy Hill in attendance, Connor O'Shea, Tom O'Connor, and Ralph Page. The applicant will now present the reasons for the rationale for the proposed amendment. The applicant is the Town of East Long Meadow. So I'd ask Jeannie to clarify.
I have to read the legal notice into the record too, first.
Okay, maybe you can do both at the same time.
Okay.
I know you're talented.
The East Long Meadow Town Council will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, October 12, 2021 at 6:15 PM via Zoom webinar for the purpose of addressing the adoption of the Stretch Energy Code. Information relating to this proposed bylaw is on file with the town clerk and available for review by the public on the town's website. For the council, Jean Quaglity, Town Clerk, Clerk of the Council.
Okay. Jeannie, did you want to make a statement on behalf of the town as the applicant for reasons and rationale?
Well, this was, we were approached by this as a step forward to be a green community, and this is one of 5 criteria going in that direction. So once we adopt this, we can look at the other steps that I believe have to be done by December 31st. I was just made aware of, so.
Yeah, yeah. Not to put you on the spot with that, but I knew you had relevant information. I could also ask, Mary, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Only that part of the master plan, one of the major tenets of it was an adoption of green community status for East Long Meadow, and open space and preservation and reservation and energy efficiency were a major component in several chapters of the master plan.
Thanks, Mary. At this time, the public can now offer any input that they have. Don, I don't know if you're seeing any speakers in the audience that would like to participate in the public portion of this hearing.
I don't see anybody wishing to speak, Mike.
Okay. We will close the public portion of the public hearing at this time. And I'll entertain a motion to Ralph.
So Mike, before that, I just want to point out that we did turn this over to the bylaw subcommittee, and the subcommittee did vote to adopt or recommend the adoption of the Stretch Energy proposal.
Great, I appreciate that information. So I'll entertain a motion at this time. Again, this was a first reading, so it will be a motion to continue.
I move to continue the public hearing to address the adoption of the Stretch Energy Code bylaw to November 9, 2021 at 6:15 PM for a second reading.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. I am a yes on the continuation. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so our public hearing will be continued on November 9th as Kathy proposed. Under licensing matters, we have an approval for a one-day license for St. Luke's. I'll entertain a motion regarding that.
I motion to approve a one-day liquor license for St. Luke's Taste of Greece on October 16th, 2021, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. with the stipulation that the alcohol be served takeout only in accordance with the state's COVID guidelines.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Discussion. I'll start the roll call vote again with myself. I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Okay. Under financial matters, motion to approve Munson Savings Bank's donation.
I move to approve Munson Savings Bank donation of $2,200 to the Recreation Department Scholarship Fund.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Discussion. I am a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
There is no old business. Under new business, proposed zoning bylaw amendment to allow the painting of signs, etc. Just see here. I'll accept the motion for that proposed zoning bylaw amendment.
I motion to refer the planning board a proposed zoning bylaw amendment to allow the painting of signs on exterior walls.
I will second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Marilyn?
Yes, thank you. Okay, it's my understanding that a bylaw comes to the council first for, somewhat of a discussion as to whether we even send it on to the planning board. Is that correct? Is that my understanding? I mean, is my understanding correct thus far? Okay.
It is my impression.
Right.
I believe the rest of the council is supporting that.
Yes.
I don't have any objection to sending this bylaw proposal forward, but I would like to have a little discussion about it first, with perhaps an explanation, if the council is agreeable, to move with the sending of this bylaw to the planning board. Because I've read it, I've researched it with the current sign bylaw, which is complicated. Our sign bylaw, as Ralph will attest to, has different criteria in different zones, different sizes, different numbers of signs, and locations of signs. This particular request as written, and I appreciate the effort that the applicant has put into this document, because it shows work, but writing bylaws is tough. And I'm not saying that we're good at it, but we've done it for a lot longer. And this particular proposal, as I look at the sections that are being referenced, deals only with the commercial zone, which is 5.82C parentheses 5.83D. That's under the category of commercial signs. And we have business signs, we have industrial garden park. There are some pieces of information here in this proposed bylaw that I think are important for the planning board to consider. I am just questioning, do we want to complicate a already complicated zoning bylaw by adding murals into the mix? I would much rather leave the sign bylaw alone as listed, because in fact, in the past years, we've made changes to this bylaw. And one of the changes was to not paint signs directly on the building because of the complication of murals. And we've had some buildings that have had murals, and I'm not saying I'm in for or against, but there was some interpretation that the mural satisfied the definition of sign in our bylaw and violated the size for that zone. Having said all that, I think the planning board needs to see this, but I would love to send along a letter of explanation that to leave the sign bylaw alone and deal with a bylaw for murals separately. I drove through town yesterday and looked at different areas where we had murals, and the murals are now painted over. And I've looked at areas where murals might enhance a particular location depending on the focus. So we would have an opportunity for cultural interest in our town, and we would have an opportunity for curbside appeal. But I don't want to complicate a mural with a sign. I believe that the signs, you can paint signs if you create a surface and then you put your painting on top of it. But if we start painting on walls at 25% of the size of the wall, we're going to run into problems with the size of the building. Look at Pioneer Gymnastics. Look at the size of that building. Take 25% of that building and make it a mural. And I'm not saying it would be detrimental to the town. All I'm saying is I can foresee some issues moving forward that would create some issues. So I respect what's written here. I'd like to ask the planning board to consider a bylaw specifically for murals that are not attached to signs or commercial advertising, just a mural to enhance maybe some town history or perhaps the particular history of the use of that building, rather than tie it to a sign. That would be my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Connor?
Thanks, Mike. I would just say that when I read the proposal before us, although part of it talks about murals, I also interpreted that some of these applicants are more concerned about actually being able to paint signs on buildings in some fashion. So I would rather not forward some statement about the council to the planning board about it only being murals and don't touch the zoning bylaw. I'd rather let the planning board decide one way or another how they would choose to recommend a change to the bylaw to us.
Okay, thank you. Ralph, did you have your hand up?
I did actually, and I was going to echo what Connor just said. I'm interested to hear what the planning board's thoughts are now. It's been a few years since I've been on the planning board. I know what my thoughts are, which are very similar, Marilyn.
Thank you for that.
But again, you know, times change. I'm interested to hear what our planning board has to say. I looked at the way the bylaw is constructed. Again, I don't agree with it, but I think we got to let our planning board do their due diligence, see what their thoughts are, and then they'll send it back with either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Marilyn, one moment, please. Well, while I have you here, go ahead. I was just going to, I'm going to extend this out to Don Mackey, that seeing that we're in the discussion phase, if there's anybody here that's relevant to tonight's conversation, I would ask them if anyone's in the audience, if they could add any additional information.
Yeah, the applicant has their hand up, so.
Okay, Marilyn, and then we'll get to the applicant.
Thanks. And I'm not going to belabor this. I guess this goes back to the original statement I made. Why does the bylaw come to us first? If we're going to just rubber stamp and move on, then, you know, we should just move it on. I thought perhaps the planning board might benefit by the discussion we've had. That's all. That's all.
Okay,
So I
thanks.
appreciate it.
Ralph,
Thank you.
you have something that you want to correspond to Marilyn's comment?
Yeah, only the reason that the petition comes to us first is we've had some in the past that were just so far out that we wouldn't even refer them to the planning board. We just cut them off right then and there and said, no, it's just not something that we're interested in at all. And again, that's just something where we have the option on a petition to do that. And there's other remedies and all, but in this situation, I'm sort of interested to see where they're looking at the signs. And I know there's been major talk about possibly redoing that portion of the bylaw anyways again. It seems like I just got through rewriting it, but
Right.
there's always changes.
Okay,
So
okay.
thank
That's
you.
fine. That's fine. No argument here.
Right. Thank you both. And Don, could you bring in the resident with their hand up?
Yep.
I'm not,
Gene, if you're
were you able to bring her in?
Well, yeah. Gene, if you can hear me and you're prompted to join with computer audio, click yes.
I think we have her.
Got me? I guess my My screen here isn't working, my camera.
All right.
'Cause you don't see.
Okay.
it. All right,
Lean a little closer to the to the screen.
okay. Oh. This.
Okay, I can see your name. We can't see you, but we can hear you. Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Jean Zampacini, 7 Dell Street, East Long Meadow, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Can you join our discussion and offer us any information that might not have been discussed?
Well, okay, Marilyn brought up I guess the confliction with murals and signs. Okay, murals I put in there, so in case anybody wanted to put up a mural, they wouldn't have a problem. But my main concern is being able to paint signage on an exterior wall. And I think on the paper there, it showed that I had referred to Agawam sign bylaws.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for your comments. Any other discussion from the council or anyone in the audience that Don Mackey might see?
I don't see anybody else, Mike.
All right, thank you. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor in a second, and we can roll call vote if we're ready here. And Marilyn,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, Jeannie, Jean, if you can still hear me. Let me just back to my screen here. Under new business, we have a recommendation to adopt a license fee schedule. If I could have a motion, please.
I'm sorry, I'm asleep at the switch here. I move to hold a public hearing to address the adoption of a license fee schedule bylaw on November 9, 2021 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
Okay, motion in a second. Any discussion? Okay, Ralph, I saw your hand first.
One of the main things that we needed to discuss, I think, is I simply put in under the fees, I listed all of our current fees, and then we added a farmer series pouring permit. I put a price of $500 based on a vague discussion that we had with it being 1/2 the cost of the wine and malt off premises. I think that's something that the board should discuss and see if they agree with that or not. And again, whether it be done tonight or whether it be done during the bylaw process, I don't see where it makes much of a difference. But I just wanted to put that out there. So this fee schedule, I based off of our charter, which states that all fees shall be done by a bylaw. I know under E code, when we finally pass that and we get to it, there is going to be a whole list of all the different town fees that'll be done up in the future. But for right now, I thought while we were doing the farmer series pouring permit, that this would be a good opportunity to get them all done at once.
Okay, thanks. Kathy?
My question is how a portion of our council rules, which speaks to the responsibility of the licensing matters subcommittee, that says it will undertake, I'm sorry, let me back up a minute. It will be comprised of up to 3 counselors and up to 3 town residents to work with the clerk, the town clerk, in the establishment of any fees required by MGL or local law. The committee will undertake a biannual review of the town's fee schedule beginning January of 2020 and make any recommendations for changes no later than July 1 of the review year. So it's a technical question. I understand that what the purpose of the bylaw is. But am I to understand that the committee will still meet to do its work and should in 2022, which will have been 2 years, because we've already taken that step to, in 2020, the committee recommended to the council and the council approved a continuation of the fees as is, in consideration of the fact that we had increased them substantially in 2018 from a previous point of 1989, because they had fallen by the wayside. And also in recognition that given the pandemic and the stress already suffering by small business owners, it would be irresponsible to increase them. So we waived an increase in fees, and that would be the charge of the committee at some point in 2022, not that far away, to do so again. So am I understanding this correctly? The committee does what it says. We undertake a review. I don't want to speak for the committee, but in all likelihood, not much has changed about why we held the license fees as is. But then we recommend to the council to raise or keep them the same. And then how do we change that in the bylaws? My question. If they stay the same, it's a moot issue. But what if we were to say, as a recommendation to the council, add $100 to each fee? Now we have a bylaw that lists outdated fees. I'm trying to understand how it dovetails.
So, Mike?
I did see other hands up, but Ralph, I believe your comments coincide with Kathy's last statement, so go
Yeah, I
ahead.
just wanted to say, so all of the fees over the time for the entire town will be done by a bylaw. What the hope is that on a once a year or once every 2 year basis, we look at them as a whole. But in between that time, if there's a need for a fee to go up, it can go up. The subcommittee makes a recommendation to the council. If the council agrees with it, we do just like this. We hold a public hearing, we change the fee, you change the bylaw, and you move on.
Fair enough.
When we get to the E code, it'll be a lot easier because it'll be a fee schedule that we're changing. So you just go in, change the number, you're done.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Thank you.
we're pushing everything forwards, and I can't wait for E code to finish up.
We all agree.
Tom?
Mike, Jeannie had provided some valuable information to us early in the process when we were looking at the Farmer Series corn permit. She had done some research with surrounding towns and came up with a fee that they were charging. And it doesn't look like it's reflected here, because I thought it was similar to a wine and malt, at least for that one. But Jeannie could probably speak better to that. She knew what she did.
Yeah, I think it was Kathy's suggestion that we do half of the wine and malt on premises, actually, because they're pouring just beer on premise. And I believe that discussion was a result of the materials that I had given you all a few months ago. There were some towns that did half, some did the same. There weren't many towns that have them, for one thing, that I could, compare to with this town our size. So I believe that was Kathy. Do you recall that, Kathy? That was your suggestion to do half based on that research I did.
Right. My recollection is that we didn't feel it fit the definition of wine and malt off premises, which is essentially a package store. And because it's served live and you enjoy the alcohol inside the establishment, we felt that it would more closely align with wine and malt on premise, which is 2,200, but certainly 50%. I mean, you could even just, instead of 1,100, you could say 1,000.
Kathy, the wine and malt on premise is 1,000.
There you go. So then it should be 50%, which is 500.
Right.
Ralph's correct.
Connor?
Thanks, Mike. I think we probably talked about it enough at this point, but just that I think probably before we move the bylaw forward to public hearing, we should just settle on that number so that we print that number in the bylaw correctly from the start. I'm good with 500.
Okay. Any other discussion? Jeannie?
I believe that should be a motion just to make it official and on the record.
Sure. I move that we continue forward with $500 as the fee for Farmer Series pouring permit letter G in the proposed bylaw that will come forward to public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on Connor's motion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll vote on that motion first. Marilyn,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ralph,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. We still have the other motion, the original motion on the floor that Kathy proposed and it was seconded by Connor. Any other discussion regarding that motion? Then we will roll call that vote as well. Marilyn,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Connor
Yes.
and Tom.
Yes.
Okay. Last item on our agenda this evening is action items for the next meeting. I will just start with it. An action meeting that coincides with this evening's meeting refers back to the open session minutes from September 14th.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have any action items pertaining to tonight's meeting? Marilyn?
At some point, I would like to bring back the code of conduct, please.
Absolutely. Any other action items? All right, well, thank you for your recommendations. There is no executive session this evening, so I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? No discussion on the adjournment. I'm a yes. Marilyn?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes.
Connor?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
We are adjourned at 7:17. Thank you all for your attendance and have a wonderful evening.
Good evening.
You too.
Good night, all.